All right, I'd like to start with VA ratings for insomnia, and I just wanted to kind of preface it with a few things. Then you could tell us about insomnia, but from a rating perspective, this is about Veterans Benefits Administration benefits. Uh, you have to have a strategy, come up with a plan, get my boot camp. If you need medical evidence, there's a link in the description for that too. Insomnia doesn't actually have a rating in VA world. And typically it's a mental health symptom and a pretty low one. And that's kind of what we're going to talk about. So, what do you know about insomnia? What can you tell us?
Insomnia actually is the number one sleep disorder, believe it or not. Insomnia is either the inability to fall asleep or the inability to maintain your sleep, or you can have both. So you can have a hard time falling asleep. You can wake up in the middle of the night and you can't get back to sleep. But usually there's some underlying cause to your insomnia. And the idea would be to figure out what it is. It could be very short term or it could be very chronic and long term. And we talk about the VA ratings as far as insomnia goes. Sometimes there's a mental health component to it. And, really getting to the crux of what or when it possibly even started. Because something must have started the insomnia to happen. Is there, I always say to patients, is there a sickness in the family? Did you lose a loved one? Are you stressed about school? There's something that has caused it. So when you're talking about insomnia symptoms, again, you want to go back to what is the underlying cause. And for the VA and the ratings, this is a conversation again you want to have with your provider and really have a conversation. It's not just, hey, I have insomnia and I can't sleep, give me something to fix it. Let's figure out where the underlying cause is. So, do you have depression? Are you suffering and thinking about, suicidal ideation? Are you, is this stuff that's interfering with your daily routine? The thing is with mental health and insomnia is they're bidirectional. Your insomnia can make your mental health worse. Mental health issues can cause your insomnia to be worse. So the idea would be to really have that conversation, honest conversation with your provider about what is really going on. Over time, insomnia is really going to cause more, problems with your everyday, dealing with your everyday life, because we all know that whatever's not going well with when you're sleeping, and we're going to talk about sleep apnea later. Anything that's not going well with while you're sleeping is going to affect your overall health during your waking time in your life.
VA claims are all about strategy. I preach and I teach strategy in my boot camp. Check it out at combatcraig.com. Yeah, that makes sense. And like insomnia is something just in my own experience. Like, oh, I have insomnia. I've had it for a long time. Like, oh, I have insomnia. I didn't sleep or I don't sleep or like it's you can't self-diagnose yourself with anything, but like that's such a common term that people understand what you're talking about and whatever. I didn't sleep. I have insomnia. Oh, me too. Again, don't do that when you're trying to file a claim. Get a doctor to do it. But then you look at a word like I'm feeling depressed. That's that's different. Like feeling depressed. So are you sad? Are you diagnosed with major depressive disorder? So a little bit different with insomnia, depression, I'm feeling like I'm stressed or anxiety. All these things feed into it and make sure you figure out what it is. And for VA rating purposes, we're going to talk about the criteria in the 70% mental health category. And I'll show you why insomnia alone usually ends up at 30. Not saying that people don't get higher ratings. It's just typically you get 30 because you don't have the symptoms. It comes down to social and occupational impairment. What do you think about going through some symptoms?
Sure, we can go through some symptoms. These are
Um,
things again that are going to affect your life. And your provider probably is going to ask you questions such as, have you had any thoughts of suicide?
yeah,
And if your answer is
suicidal
yes, then
ideation
they're
is a
going to.
good one. Like, I mean, I guess technically I have insomnia and I mean, I'm sure it's happened, but major depressive disorder fits in there a lot better, or PTSD or anxiety or one of the other 150 conditions other than insomnia. So
Sure.
Look for
And
the
even that,
underlying condition, because there probably is one. If you have suicidal ideation and you only have a
sure.
diagnosis of insomnia, you have more stuff going on, is most likely what's going
Oh,
on.
for sure. And just because you have suicidal ideation doesn't mean you might not carry it out, but the thoughts of something like that, that's a big red flag for sure.
Absolutely.
Are there, yes. Are there any obsessive, things that you're doing that are interfering with,
Daily
your normal
activities, obsessive
daily
rituals,
activities?
checking the
Mm-hmm.
locks, checking the cameras too
Washing your
much.
hands.
Yep. So for me,
Yep.
those things are kind of in both the anxiety and the depression. My hypervigilance stuff, and I definitely wouldn't attribute that to insomnia. It could be a little bit there, but for sure, I know I don't know how it goes there, but I understand, and I'm diagnosed with other mental health conditions, and they fit in better there.
Well, it's true. And then, that other one that I know is on the list is about maybe thinking illogically, having different things going on with your speech. Maybe you're not getting all your words out like you're supposed to. And that insomnia, if you experience insomnia night after night after night, how much sleep are you actually getting? And it is going to impair your thoughts, and it's going to impair a lot of what's going on, during the day. How are you going to function? We all know when we don't get a good night of sleep and we're at work during the day, we have a hard time focusing just sitting at our desk. So if you're somebody who, like, again, has insomnia and you're only getting 3 to 4 hours of sleep, maybe some people aren't sleeping, what is that doing to your overall, you know, thoughts, activities? Are you more irritable? We know we're super irritable. Is it going to cause more of an impulse um, mechanism to have a reaction that might not be a very good one?
It's kind of funny. You're kind of selling me on that because it's like, yeah, I totally have uncontrollable road rage. The best solution isn't what I do, which is don't drive and try to avoid people. But insomnia could cause that. It can cause a
Sure,
lot
it
of these
can.
things. Yeah, you're right. It does tie in, which I guess to the bigger picture, especially coming down to ratings. There's probably other stuff going on. So go see a board certified psychologist or psychiatrist, but probably a psychologist, and get a diagnosis, find out what's going on.
It might even be your best friend or your partner who I know one of the things on the list is, you're not taking really good care of yourself. Your hygiene starts to wane. You're not getting out of bed. You're staying in bed all day long. You're not the person who's getting up to brush their hair or to put on your clothes even. There's some people who will lay around in bed all day, sleep all day. That's a good sign that, there's a depression underlying cause.
There are two times when you don't need a nexus: when you file a claim while you're still on active duty, like a BDD claim, or when you're in the 1 year presumptive period. Any other time, you need a nexus. You also need a strategy. Check out my boot camp and contact my med team if you need a nexus.
Leading to that insomnia. You're not sleeping all night long, so we're just going to lay in bed all day long and not care about ourselves.
In my case, just a completely separate thing is chronic fatigue syndrome. That hits me and I'm like that, and then the depression kicks in. So there's different things, but yep, it's insomnia can be there for sure. If you can't sleep, you can't really do any of this thing. You don't really care about how you look, how your relationships are, going to work, having a wife, being a good, mother, father, brother, sister, whatever. You're probably having problems all over the place. But I think you're probably having some other mental health issues as well.
Right. And it's going to be taken out on all the people who are closest to you. And they're probably the ones who are going to bring it to your attention. But it's up to that individual to want to do something about it. And that's why in these cases where mental health is potentially involved into an insomnia case, you definitely want to go have a conversation with your provider. Because like we said, insomnia alone is not anything as far as a VA rating until you actually go see your provider and maybe find out what the underlying cause is.
Yeah, and you brought up another good point. It is good to just kind of switching gears, buddy letters, lay evidence, lay statements. Getting a buddy letter from your wife to explain that is good, but that is not a substitute for actual diagnosis. A lot of people are unclear on that. Self diagnosing yourself when you're not a doctor or having your wife do it is not an actual diagnosis. You're actually going to a CNP exam for insomnia, and you're going to see a doctor. And he's going to be like, oh, that's cute. You diagnosed yourself. Oh, look how cute. Your wife did it too. Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, he may diagnose you, but he'll probably just be like, yeah, I don't think so. Go get a real diagnosis.
Right. And I think it's hard. A lot of people who experience these issues don't necessarily want to talk about them either. So that's why you need that significant other, your buddy to say, "Hey, something's going on with you." And it's hard for individuals, I think, who are experiencing mental health issues, like I said, to own it. I know mental health has become something that's more awareness to mental health these days, and that the stigma hopefully is not as bad as it once was because there's so much more focus on it, and especially how it relates to sleep.
Yes, I agree. There is more awareness on it, and just I've really gone through this after whatever I was 50 when I got real with myself about mental health and the strangeness. There is nothing. It's embarrassing having suicidal ideation or being anywhere in that bucket, and you need to be able to go talk about that in front of a doctor, like to get a diagnosis and at your CNP exam. So you need to talk about it, and you should probably talk about it with your spouse and your kids. And when you're the dad and you're the rock and all that stuff, and you're talking about that stuff, it's a hard conversation, but have it because it'll definitely make your life longer, I think.
Sure, and then it'll remove some of that stress that's going on I'm sure in the household because of it.
Yeah, people understand maybe what you're going through. I don't know. I don't know if it's going to fix it, but if people are more aware of what you're carrying and maybe why you're carrying it, yeah, they might. Okay, this is why he does
And I would
this and that.
imagine, here we're just regular lay people, going through our day to day, but we're talking about, veterans. We're talking about people who served in the military, whose experiences are far different than anything I've experienced or ever seen. So things like that live with you for a long time. And having to be able to talk to them, having to be able to talk about it would be helpful.
Yep, I agree.